Welcome to the Abbott News. Today we're going to be discussing Sherlock Holmes, A Scandalous Affair, a novella that I've written in the style of both Arthur Conan Doyle. It is set in 1899 and I tried to keep it as authentic as I could without making any changes to the established characters. Sherlock Holmes was the superhero of his time. He had a mental capacity that far exceeded most people's, with the exception of perhaps Mycroft Holmes, who was the brother of Sherlock and the intellectual superior. When I wrote this book, I had only one actor in mind for the part of Holmes, and that was Jeremy Brett. For me, Sherlock Holmes is Jeremy Brett, or should I say Jeremy Brett is Sherlock Holmes. And Jeremy Brett himself personified all of the right characteristics that were written by Conan Doyle. Some of the things that Jeremy Brett did to improve the perception of the character, or should I say, to put right some of the wrongs that had been done in previous visual versions of Holmes, was to remove this element of the deerstalker and the very large Austrian type pipes that were used as props by other actors who portrayed him. Sherlock Holmes himself was a gentleman. He would never wear a deerstalker or a trilby coat in London. He would wear a top hat and tails, and Jeremy Brett was very keen to make sure that happened. The only time Sherlock Holmes ever wore a deerstalker hat was when he went to the country. I think it's very important to recognize Jeremy Brett's performance as Sherlock Holmes, David Burke, who was the Watson for the first series, and Edward Hardwicke, who became the Watson from the second series onwards. And I think it's very incumbent upon us to recognize that Granada TV Studios did a fabulous job of translating those stories from the books to the screen. We knew those stories well, we knew them backwards, so what could they do that was different? And yet they did. They managed to give it a sparkle, a bit of life, and they managed to make us enjoy it even though we kind of knew how it was going to end. Very much near the end of Jeremy's time as Sherlock Holmes, he got worse and worse in terms of his illness, and that really affected his portrayal of the character. And in my mind, Granada TV Studios made a mistake to continue filming because of that. If you look at it now with a critical eye, you can see that Jeremy was unwell. You can see that Jeremy was unable to deliver the lines as he used to be able to do. And that was not the best legacy for him. It would have been better had they realized this early on and not continued with some of these stories, but they didn't. So we do have to look at them and enjoy them for the best that we can, and also because it is Jeremy Brett and Edward Hardwicke performing. So I thought that Granada did a fabulous job up until the memoirs of Sherlock Holmes, and then those stories were really quite poor in my opinion, and they didn't reflect the stories as written, and they didn't reflect the magical ability that Jeremy Brett had to perform as Sherlock Holmes. So in conclusion, and just wrapping back to my book, the story really is trying to capture some of the elements of the original series, my mind being that Jeremy Brett is playing my Sherlock Holmes and Edward Hardwicke is playing my Watson, and try to get some of their characterizations into this story, because of course they took the original stories and made them into a TV show, but they have their own personalities, and even though they were actors, you can't hide some of that. There are fabulous actors who have injected their own personality into the characters, and I think later on we start to see them as the part. Sherlock Holmes is another character that's very quirky and has very weird ways of working. Hercule Poirot, again personified by the amazing David Suchet, is another one of these actors that just grabs your attention and just runs with the part. And now when I think of Poirot, I think of David Suchet. When I think of Sherlock Holmes, I think of Jeremy Brett. When I think of Doctor Who, I think of Peter Capaldi or Colin Baker or Tom Baker. You know, these are actors that have given it such a sort of stylistic nuance of their own. They've come in and they said, this is my part now. I don't care what you did before. This is me now. And like, I'm the Doctor, or I'm Sherlock Holmes, or I'm whoever. And I'm going to play it the way I want to play it. So when I wrote this book, I had that in mind, that I wanted to make my characters essentially the original Sherlock Holmesian style, Dr. Watson style, from the Arthur Conan Doyle concepts, but inject a little bit of the actor's characterization of Sherlock Holmes' Jeremy Brett and Dr. Watson's Edward Hartley. This has been another Abbott Muse. My name is Christopher D. Abbott. Thank you so much. Hit the subscribe button if you like my videos. Make it so.